Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Poudre RiverFest. This is our Day of Wildlife. So the Poudre RiverFest this year, we're actually doing a hybrid version of our event. So we actually have 4 days that we'll be celebrating the Poudre River over 4 months. And today is the first day and our focus is wildlife. So we have a live presentation from the Fort Collins Audubon Society. The presentation is the Poudre River Grocery Store, Fuel Station, and Home Sweet Home to Colorado Birds. Just so everybody knows, we do have a group of nonprofits and organizations in Fort Collins that put on the Poudre River Fest. These are those organizations here today. And finally, the proceeds from the Poudre River Fest go to support restoration on the Cache la Poudre River. We encourage anyone who is interested or has the means to donate to visit poudreriverfest.org. We have a donate button right there. Our goal is on August 21st at our final event for this year, we will be announcing our restoration project. So those that donate would be able to find out exactly what those funds are going to on August 21st. So I am going to stop sharing my screen for 1 minute. And we are also going to go live on Facebook, hopefully. So let me get that started. And make sure we put it at the right group. Okay, we are going live. And now I would love to introduce Sheila. She's with the Fort Collins Audubon Society, and she is going to be presenting this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Laura. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I would like to go ahead and turn my screen off. There we go, so I can just share my slides. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fort Collins Audubon Society's presentation for this year's Poudre River Fest. We're honored to be here again this year and excited to present the Poudre River Important Bird Area, Grocery Store, Fuel Station, and Home Sweet Home to Colorado Birds. Our presentation last year was all about how the urban corridor of the Poudre River in Fort Collins gained the designation Important Bird Area in 2018. If you were unable to join us for that fun and informative talk, you can find it on our Fort Collins Audubon Society YouTube channel. This year's talk will highlight some more of the beautiful bird species you can find on or near the Poudre River and how these birds have a special connection to the Poudre River. Of the approximately 500 species of birds that have been recorded in Colorado, over 300 of those species have been recorded in our very own Poudre River IBA. This shows just how important the river is to birds. So let's take a look at some beautiful photos and video footage to see just how these birds make a living on the Poudre. But first, just a quick recap of what an important bird area is. An important bird area, or IBA, and I'll refer to it as both through the presentation, they're part of a global network created by BirdLife International 40 years ago. They're places of statewide, national, or international significance for the conservation of birds and other biodiversity. They're identified using standardized criteria, and they're distinct areas that are amenable to practical conservation action. And this last point doesn't mean that they have legal protection, but an important bird area draws attention to just how important these places are for birds and other biodiversity, and then it's up to us to protect and preserve them. I saw it put this way on the National Audubon Society site, that IBAs are beloved biologically rich landscapes, and I thought that summed it up really well. Rivers and wetlands provide food and shelter for migrating birds and permanent resident species. Riparian corridors also serve as important migration pathways for birds that live in other habitats, such as grasslands and mountain forests. And rivers and wetlands cover less than 4% of Colorado, That number is probably closer to 2%. And breeding bird censuses taken in 2001, 2002, and 2006 proved that the Poudre River corridor provides unique, restricted, and important bird habitat. One of the amazing things, just one of the amazing things about birds is migration and how very far they can travel. I want to take you on a tale of two travelers. Imagine that you've crossed the country on a trip. You're tired, you're hungry, and it's been a long journey. You know there's a store in the next town with a lovely restaurant, and you're looking forward to a home-cooked meal. You arrive, and sure enough, the windows are lit, and the smell of delicious food wafts out the door when you enter. You can enjoy your favorite meal, rest, and finish your trip. This is what the Poudre River is to birds. Another traveler, the cliff swallow, migrates from North America to southern South America in the fall and back again every spring, a trip that is 6,000 miles one way. No Studebaker for her, just the fat reserves she has amassed to make the journey. By the time she comes back in the spring, she needs that restaurant. The restaurant may look like this to you and me, but this is what the Poudre River restaurant looks like to her. Cliff swallows are insectivores, eating insects such as these caddisflies, mayflies, and mosquitoes on the wing up and down the river. They also utilize the river in another way, collecting mud pellets on the bank, up to 1,000 of them, and they fly up under the bridges that span the river to glue these pellets together to make these amazing cliff swallow condos, where they raise 1 or 2 broods of nestlings each season. Another species that's back from their wintering grounds along the coasts of the US, Mexico, and Central America is the American white pelican. This bird, with a 7 to 12 foot wingspan, eats mostly fish, like this huge catch. They will eat tadpoles and crayfish too. They often work as a team, with lots of pelicans working together to herd the fish. You can find them in the ponds adjacent to the Poudre. Great blue herons are found along the river and in ponds adjacent to the river as well. They eat a variety of prey, including reptiles, amphibians, small mammals, and of course, fish. This one's showing off a bit, I think. The river provides food to many species year-round. This common goldeneye was photographed catching this crayfish in January this year. The common goldeneye is a cavity nester, but goes up north to Canada to nest. Many species can make their living along the Poudre River year-round, and here are a few of the ones that glean insects and larvae from under the bark and also eat nuts, seeds, and berries. From the left, they are the white-breasted nuthatch, the red-breasted nuthatch, the black-capped chickadee, and the brown creeper. The American dipper is absolutely tied to the river. It's our only aquatic songbird. It hunts all along the river for the grocery supply that I have listed here on the right-hand side. And it needs free-flowing water in the river in the winter. It has a dense coat of feathers so that the cold water does not bother it. And it has other adaptations as well, such as extra oxygen carrying capacity in its blood and a slower metabolism. I'd love to share some underwater footage taken by Bob Armstrong, courtesy of National Audubon Society, showing the American dipper hunting underwater. This is just incredible footage of how the bird swims underwater with its wings and its regular little perching bird feet. It has no webbing between its toes. It's just incredible how it turns over the leaf litter and other debris looking for insect larvae, insects, and other food items. I'd like for it to speak for itself for just a second. If you'd like to watch this video over and over again, like I did while putting together this presentation, you can Google "A Dipper Dives Audubon" and watch it in its entirety. The Poudre River really is the lifeblood of our communities and natural areas here in Fort Collins. This map shows the parks and natural areas that comprise the IBA and are owned and managed by the City of Fort Collins. Taking good care of our river ensures future health and enjoyment for the human and wildlife species that depend on it. The benefits of keeping the Poudre River healthy are a high quality habitat for birds and other wildlife, like we're seeing in this presentation, pollution control that benefits everybody, flood control. There's been wonderful work by the City of Fort Collins to connect the river back to its floodplain and protects us from some high water events. Nutrient cycling and recreational opportunities. Many people enjoy lots of recreational opportunities up and down the river because it's just a beautiful place to be. Back to our common goldeneye. Here's some footage of these beautiful males on the river this winter. You can identify them by their black and white plumage on the body. The head is iridescent green or even purple, depending on how the light hits it. And they sport that beautiful white spot between the eye and the bill. The female isn't shown here, but she has more of a gray body and a chocolate brown head. She doesn't have that white spot, but both the male and the female have the gold eye that give them their name. To the right is the list of some of the food items that the river provides for this beautiful diving duck. Clean water is something we all need, like this pretty little mourning dove having a cool drink. And these dark-eyed juncos keeping their feathers in tip-top condition. The cute splashing around. These birds like to stay near the ground in the cover of bushes and other undergrowth. They have the sweetest little call note. It's pretty quiet and high-pitched. Just love how they splash the water. Here's another duck species that's back from its wintering ground in Mexico and Central America. The cinnamon teal is a dabbling duck like the mallard, and it will eat most of its food items from near the surface of the water. Over 250 species of birds nest in Colorado. I'm not sure how many of those nest along the important bird area along the Poudre River, but I'm sure it's quite a few. Here are some of our primary cavity nesters responsible for creating nesting cavities that other birds use: the Downy woodpecker and the northern flicker. Thank you, woodpeckers. Woodpeckers are a keystone species providing nesting cavities for secondary nesters, like the tree swallow and the eastern bluebirds and many other species. Yay, woodpeckers. Common mergansers are another diving duck that frequent the Poudre River and are a species found in Colorado year-round. This is another species that is a cavity nester. Our owl species do not build nests of their own. The great horned owl will take over last year's nest of other birds, such as the red-tailed hawk, or find a large cavity that will work, such as this one has done. The eastern screech owl are a cavity nester and are masters of camouflage. Eastern screech owls need understory in their habitats, and studies of the occupancy rates of this owl by the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies is ongoing to guide restoration efforts along the river. The first time I looked up to see a wood duck in a tree, I think I had to pinch myself up off the ground. I think it's so amazing and cute to see a duck perched in a tree. This amazingly beautiful duck is also a cavity nester and has cavities to nest in thanks in part to the woodpecker's work. American robins are a species that many people think migrate, but in fact, they are here for all seasons. They change their behavior according to season, remaining pretty quiet when it's not nesting time. They eat berries and insects especially during the nesting season, like 96% of all our bird species do, feeding insects to nestlings who need the protein for proper development. Back to our American dipper friend, this time with nesting material. The dipper nest is usually 6 to 20 feet above water to protect the nest from flooding and predators. The design is ingenious because there's an inner nest made of grasses and other dried vegetation chosen from along the river, and the outer portion of the round nest is made up of mosses, which absorb moisture and keep the inner nest dry. Such a smart bird. We have a list of 10 things that you can do to help protect our wonderful birds. You can make your backyard into a wildlife habitat, and it's especially beneficial when you combine it with number 2, creating a pollinator garden. This benefits birds all across the landscape because it will increase their food supply. Even replacing part of your lawn will help stitch back wildlife habitat. And then this ties in with point number 3, which is garden without pesticides, because they won't be necessary if you use native plants. You can shop for birds, purchasing shade-grown coffee, which helps prevent deforestation in Central and South America, where a lot of these birds spend their winters. And shopping locally helps benefit the natural areas because of the voter-initiated tax that supports the natural areas. You can join the Audubon's Lights Out program. This is a program that's gaining a lot of notoriety recently. There's a lot of information out about it right now. It focuses on keeping our light pollution down so that the birds won't get confused during migration and run into buildings. So check out that Audubon Lights Out program. You can save energy and cut carbon emissions and part with plastics. And to this one, I might add cleaning up fishing tackle that you see along the waterways. Curbing your kitties. Please keep kitty cats indoors. That will help our bird population quite a bit. And create communities. Talk to other people about what you've learned about birds and about your own amazing bird sightings. It's so much fun to share. And join the Fort Collins Audubon Society. The Fort Collins Audubon Society is a chapter of the National Audubon Society. We're an all-volunteer organization which provide education to adults and children through programs and education materials. We offer a small scholarship to teachers and students studying bird-related topics. And we have a program meeting on the second Thursday of the month covering a variety of topics. And right now that's via Zoom, and we'd love to have you join us. The information on how to join is on our website. The programs are held September through May. Our newsletters come out during these same months and contain conservation and education articles, along with information about what our organization is doing and wonderful photos. We normally lead field trips, which are on hold right now, but we'll keep you informed as to when they start up again. Conservation of birds and other wildlife is a focus of our chapter, and we advocate for important bird areas, submit comments on local, regional, and national rules that affect birds and wildlife, and we attend meetings of local officials on key topics. You can join any of our events anytime without membership, but we'd love for you to join. The Fort Collins Audubon Society, promotes the appreciation, conservation, and restoration of ecosystems, focusing on birds and other wildlife through education, participation, stewardship, and advocacy. Here's some beautiful American avocets. I saw some of these along the river yesterday as well. And that's our presentation Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and we'll have fun going out to look for birds along the Poudre River.
Sheila, thank you so much. Really appreciate that wonderful presentation. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We have a couple of minutes left, so we can see if Sheila has any resources or additional information she can share with the group. And again, today is the first day of this year's series of Poudre RiverFest events. We have our next live webinar is at 1 o'clock today, and it is wildlife along the Poudre River. I will happily put the Zoom link in the chat in case anybody didn't get a chance to register, but you would like to join us. It will be a great afternoon presentation. But Sheila, tell me, what is one of your greatest benefits of being a member of the Fort Collins Audubon Society for yourself personally?
It's really opportunities to teach and to share the knowledge that I'm constantly gaining about birds, because there's so much to know. And then also the wealth of information brought to the organization by other wonderful experts that it's just so fascinating, so much fun. And being a part of such a welcoming group, that's lots of fun to be around as well.
I have a quick fun story. I recently came across an Indiegogo campaign, and Indiegogo is like a startup campaign where people have new ideas or new products, and they're trying to kind of raise funds to be able to launch those products. And I got suckered into being a part of that launch campaign. So I bought a bird feeder that has an AI camera. So what happens is the birds will come up, and then somehow, I'm not a technologist, so I don't know all of the details, but then it identifies the bird species and reports back to you which birds are coming to your bird feeder.
That's really cool. I did not know that this thing exists. I'm going to have to look that up.
Unfortunately, because it's still a startup and a new company, I won't actually receive the bird feeder until October. So it won't be super useful for this summer, but I can report back to you after October and let you know how great it is.
Thanks. I'd love to hear. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Sheila, for your wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it. Again, I put the link for our 1 o'clock webinar, which is on wildlife along the Poudre River, in the chat. So feel free to come back and join us in about 30 minutes.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sheila.